landowners banding together can really affect change on a project.
Yeah.
The difficulty in that is if you get an initial offer letter, you're already too late. You're already too late to affect that kind of routing decision or about where the project is going to go. And you could go get a lawyer from downtown Dallas or downtown Austin, Houston, whatever, but they're not going to understand the realities and the practical approach to the legal problems they have. I think the best thing, if you get that notification for an open meeting, the open house that they have in the communities, show up to that open house and definitely fill out the questionnaire.
Yeah.
Fill out those questionnaires. Tell them absolutely everything about your property and why it shouldn't go there and your opinion about it, because no one knows your property better than you.
Welcome to the Landowner Insider, the podcast for Texas landowners who want to stay up to date with current events shaping our state. Here we talk about issues that actually impact your Texas lands, markets, water, wildlife, policy, and the decisions that are shaping our state. I'm your host, Kasey Mock with the Mock Ranches Group. And in each episode, we sit down with the people who are shaping the future of Texas. We're not afraid to ask the hard questions. This is the Landowner Insider podcast presented by the Mock Ranches Group. So that mule deer there.
Yes.
I killed that mule deer in southern New Mexico, so that's actually a desert mule deer with a bow. And it's a funny story. The pronghorn I killed in eastern Colorado, my freshman year of college, I think. Freshman or sophomore year of college. Dad came and picked us up. So my dad used to guide in the mountains when we were little big kids and even before that. And then when my brother and I got old enough to start hunting, he kind of stopped doing all that so he could hunt with us.
Okay.
So I didn't get into Western hunting. That's my favorite thing now. But I didn't get into Western big game hunting until later in life because we always just hunted around here, which is what little kids could do.
Yeah.
But the mule deer, I was hunting with Phil Treadwell in southern Colorado or southern New Mexico, and a guy named Michael Ding, who's an oral surgeon in Austin, was there with us. And the three of us were in the truck. And this ranch that we're on is very large, 60 to 100,000 acres. I don't know how big it was. It was really, really big, in sections out there,
exactly.
not acres. Yeah, a lot of sections. And so we pulled up to a bump gate, and it was in January, so it was in the rut. For the desert mule deer, they rut pretty late. Mm-hmm. And so we pull up to the gate, and we're glassing all this country out in front of us with our binoculars and spotting scopes looking at deer. And we look to our right, and coming down the fence line is a buck. That's a shooter buck. We're at bow hunting, archery hunt. So, this buck's walking down the fence, and we're sitting here in the pickup, and we're thinking, we might get a shot right here. Well, it was Ding's turn to go in a stalk. It was my turn to go in a stalk. So Ding stays at the truck, and I walk around this knob and this buck, thinking I was going to see this buck, thinking surely he's not going to walk right between the truck and the bump gate. He's going to, because these are wild deer. This is not a high fence. Yeah. These are wild deer that live most of their life on public land, but in the rut, they get a little dumb, especially mule deer. They get real dumb in the rut. And so I walk around this little knob expecting this deer's going to turn, and I'm over there for like an hour. I come back and no deer. Well, turns out the buck had walked right in front of the truck, and Ding draws over the hood of the truck and shoots, but the bottom cam of his bow hits the truck.
Yep.
And he nicks this buck. And so we think, okay, we got a wounded deer, so let's go find him, right? Mm-hmm. So we start hiking up through the hills, and I'm hiking down this ridge, and I see this buck bedded at the head of this basin, head of this drainage, not very far away, and it looks kind of like the same deer. And so I'm thinking, I've got him. Here's the buck that was wounded, right?
Yep.
And we blow a coyote call, and the buck jumps up and starts running. And he runs around up above me, and I ended up shooting him. The whole time I'm thinking I'm shooting a wounded deer, like to finish this buck. Mm-hmm. And I hit the deer kind of bad, but I was like, well, I'm trying to put a second arrow in him, so it wasn't the most calculated shot.
Right. Yeah.
And so the buck runs across this canyon and goes over there and beds down. I watch him till dark, and I come back the next morning, and there was only one arrow in him. It was mine. So it was a totally different deer. So the whole time I think I'm shooting this wounded deer, and it was a totally different deer. Oh. But it's cool. It's my first mule deer with a bow. Killed a bunch of them since then.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
Very cool.
So Carly Barton, thanks for coming to Stephenville.
Thank you for inviting me.
Attorney at Braun and Gresham.
Yes.
Give us your background.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Austin.
Okay.
And then went to UT for undergrad, went to Texas Tech for law school.
Got it.
And then after a couple of years in Lubbock, decided to move back home where my husband's family's been for many generations. So we moved to Hays County. And
Which
with that, we live in Kyle.
I grew up in Kyle.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's crazy. You probably grew up when it wasn't
like
suburbs
today.
that
No.
it is now.
No.
My husband mourns it all the time and likes to
Who's
talk
your
about
husband?
His name is Zach Barton.
So there's the Bartons are old family in Kyle.
They are. And his
The newspaper in Buda and all
Yes.
sorts of things.
Yep. So his grandfather and Bob Barton and Mo Johnson founded the, I think it was like Hays County Citizen, and then it morphed into the Hays Free Press over the years. So that's
So I
his
knew Mo
family.
Johnson my whole life until he passed away.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Coach Jay was a good friend of the family.
Yeah. Well, now there's the new high school is named after him.
Yes.
So we wanted to move home to be close to family and be a part of that kind of legacy. And so I live in Kyle now. And then actually my father-in-law knew David Braun and Kasey Gresham because they were a part of preserving the Dahlstrom Ranch, and they entered into a private and public partnership.
Is your father-in-law Jeff?
Yes.
Yep. I know Jeff.
Yeah. So Jeff knew David Braun and Kasey Gresham because they'd worked together when he was a county commissioner to have a preserve for Hays County on the Dahlstrom Ranch. Kasey and David represented the Dahlstroms, still do. And so he's like, oh, I really like these people. And I was like, okay, well, sure. I'll, please. When I moved back, he sent my resume to all of his attorney friends, the few that he had. And then a year later, David Braun responded to that email and said, hey, is your daughter-in-law still looking for a job? And I wasn't at the time, but because my father-in-law spoke so highly of David and Kasey, I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll try it out. I'll go there. And so I went and I interviewed, and I loved it. And I loved the people there, the kind of work that they did. It was really interesting to me. And so after that, I joined the firm. And
what year was that?
That was in 2009, the very beginning of 2019.
Okay.
So I've been there for almost 7.5 years now. They hired me when I was pregnant with my first kiddo. So I track my years by his age.
Yeah, perfect.
But no, it's been a great time. And I started right at the time they were building the Permian Highway, or not building yet, but they were proposing the Permian Highway pipeline.
Yep.
And so that was a really big deal. It's the first natural gas pipeline through the heart of the Texas Hill Country, right? Mm-hmm. Hays County into Gillespie, Blanco, and that area. So there was a lot of pushback. We were part of an effort to stop it. We didn't.
That was the Kinder Morgan line that ran through Wimberley.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I worked on that extensively with some of your firm too.
Yes. Yeah. And so we did our best, had some clients that really wanted to stop it, of course, had lots of concerns about it. Ultimately, we didn't. But from that, it was really my first foray into eminent domain and condemnation and that world, and how to, what that impacts to landowners really look like.
So my fear is that these transmission lines are going to be the same thing. We're going to fight them really hard, and they're going to happen. And then we're going to look up and say, dang, we can't do that again. Or the legislature's going to say, we can never take private property like this and do this again this way. But by that time, Kinder Morgan's got their pipeline.
Right.
And Encore's got their transmission lines.
Right.
So we'll revisit that point in a little while.
Okay.
That's why I reached out to Kasey.
Yeah.
My backstory, I was business partners with David and Kasey in Burrell in 2000, probably business partners from 2012 to 2014. But I worked for Plateau Land and Wildlife for like 6 years before that.
Oh, great.
I was a
I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was a county extension agent right out of college. Nice. And then the director of sales at Plateau And I did a wildlife management program at the Kerr Wildlife Management Area in Kerrville. So this would have probably been like 2009. I think it was probably 2009, 9 or 10, 9, I think. And we did a program together, and he offered me, his name was Ken Thigpen, and Ken offered me a job in the parking lot afterwards to come work for Plateau. And I had not been an extension for very long. I'd only been an extension for like 6 months, and it was in Hays County.
Yeah.
And it was my home county, and I knew everybody, and I felt like I had all these expectations. I'm pretty confident Jeff was a commissioner then.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, and Will was there. Will Conley was there.
Yep.
At that time, he was a commissioner. And people that don't know, the Texas AgriLife Extension Service before was called the Cooperative Extension Source because it was a cooperative funded effort between your local county and the Texas A&M system.
Right. Yep.
And so when I was there, it was called AgriLife. They'd had a little rebranding, to identity crisis, I guess.
Yep.
But you just almost starved to death in that career. It was not very lucrative.
Right.
And so Ken offered me a job, and it paid double what I was making at Extension.
Yeah.
And it was basically the same job. It was programming, meeting with landowners and addressing their needs and programming. And so I did that for 4 or 5 years, I guess maybe 5 years. And then we started a company with Plateau and Braun and Gresham called Plateau Land Group, which was a real estate firm.
Yeah.
And it was Burl and Kasey and David and myself and Craig Bowen. We were the partners.
Yeah.
And then about a year after that, I was offered an opportunity with Keller Williams Realty International to go build their farm and ranch land division nationally. So I stepped away and did that and gave my equity to the other partners, but have remained very good friends and still use the firm when we have a need. And so I was active. So back during the Kinder Morgan pipeline deal that you spoke of, the Permian Highway, I think they called it
Permian Highway Pipeline.
Permian Highway Pipeline. Yeah. Yeah, ran from Kainosa to Bay City, I think is where it ran from. And it cut straight through the center part of the hill country, right? That was a big deal back then because there was not a right-of-way punched through that part of the hill country. And the opportunity was closing for Kinder Morgan or anybody that needed to flow natural gas or oil hydrocarbons through a major pipeline. That opportunity was closing because of fragmentation and development. So they would have had to take houses and neighborhoods if they waited much longer. So they got their right-of-way punched through. We fought like hell to stop it.
Yep.
And a lot of people fought. It was interesting to see that pipeline project because you saw people on the far left and people on the far right who were unified in that they didn't want the pipeline.
Right.
For very different reasons. One said, it's my ranch and I don't want a pipeline through my ranch. And the other one said, there was environmental concerns and they're afraid that things going to blow up and give you cancer. And, the very, very polarizing reasons they didn't want it. Yep. But neither of them wanted it. And they came together and fought on that. And there's still people dealing with that stupid pipeline.
Oh, absolutely.
I've got clients in Hays County still today that got the pipeline and the special commission awarded them more money than Kinder Morgan believed that they should have made. And they've still been in litigation over that and trying to settle on what they're actually going to get for those damages.
Right.
And so.
Well, and that's so important because it is truly, as the landowner, your only shot at getting money from them. Right. It really is.
There's no escalation clause. Like today, my place is worth $20,000 an acre. 20 years from now, it's worth $50,000 an acre.
Right. And
there's no escalation to pay you then.
Right. And at that time, that they were starting the pipeline, land prices really, really substantially increased right after it started being planned to come through there. Correct. And so having that hard conversation, and having that hard conversation with a client saying, well, hey, we've got to look at the real estate values back when they first start, when the taking first happened versus a couple years down the line. Yeah. That's hard. Yeah. And definitely, makes the process unfair for landowners.
And you use the word take because it is a take.
It is a take. It is not a sale. It is not a sale.
It is very much a legal take.
Absolutely.
Right. 100%. And I love that. I think that word's so appropriate. So the reason I reached out to Kasey, I actually reached out to Patrick first because Patrick and I used to do a bunch of work together and I really love Patrick. He's a great guy.
Oh yeah.
Patrick Resnick, who's another one of the counselors at the firm.
Yes.
So my wife and I about call it 6 months ago-ish, received a letter in the mail that we were one of the lucky winners of one of the preferred routes for the Dinosaur Longshore transmission line project through Erath County, which is a 750-ish, I don't know what it's giant. It'd be the largest transmission line project in the state.
Correct.
Or in
so
the country.
it's a 765 kilovolt transmission line project. Many counties, hundreds of miles, part of a transmission line build out that was spurred by the Permian Basin Reliability Plan.
Yeah.
That was passed by the legislature.
Yeah.
So you got the golden ticket.
I got one. Well, I hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully
yes.
not. There was five possible routes through Erath County, and we were one of the 5. And I think on the front end, probably one of the preferred, but they've since, it seems like maybe they've adjusted some of their routes a little bit, but we were one of the 5. And I know enough to know about condemnation and eminent domain. I know enough about the process to know that you can spend a lot of money and feel like a really passionate activist and feel really good about it and still get it.
Yep.
And so my first call was to Patrick, and I asked him, just, hey, friend to friend, what should I do here? And he gave me some good advice. And I just really modeled what we had learned from David and Kasey and Burl and what they had done so well. And that was put together groups of landowners to be unified and informed and have a voice. So I'm going to back up a few years again, and then we'll come back to this.
Okay.
When I was working so much around the Driftwood and Wimberley area, we had another type of eminent domain or condemnation, and that was for realignment of FM 150 through the middle of Hays County.
Yes.
And there
Familiar.
was, very probably. There was realignment of FM 150 through Hays County. And then at the same time, we had water lines and wastewater lines. And so there was all these things hit in about a year. Realignment of 150. And I was actually in David's office, and there was a map on the table, and I said, what is that? And I don't think I was supposed to see the map, but I saw the map. And he said, well, that's a map that we've gotten our hands on. That's a, future proposed alignment of 150. And I said, well, you and I both know this landowner, this. We know all these landowners, and they're not for this. He said, well, I understand. That's what we're trying to get our heads around. But I said, and David and I, it's not like I said, he knew too, but this landowner and these over here would probably take it because they're probably pro-sale, pro-development, maximize value. Yeah. These want a family ranch. And so we put together, there was a few individuals that really funded this. Mr. Keller was one of them. But we put together the Driftwood Heritage Conservation Society and the Onion Creek Coalition. 2 things we started with a lot of David Braun's help. Those two stakeholder groups in Hays County. One was, and was for the most part successful, and that was helping, not working against, but helping the local officials shape the best route for 150.
Yep.
And so we basically went landowner to landowner to landowner and said, would you want a road if that maximized value for subdivision later or not? And we're able to help form an alignment of people that said, you know what, we would like frontage because later we can develop, and some that said, we are pro-conservation and pro-legacy for our family, and we don't want it. Yep. And we're able to help with alignment. And by the way, get Dark Skies Initiative along that. And we designated the stretch from Hays City Store to Old Town Driftwood as the William B. Travis Heritage Trail.
Yep.
And huge win.
That's how I drive to work every day.
Yes,
so
perfect.
Very familiar.
Yeah. So huge win by organizing landowners.
Absolutely.
And coming from a place of trying to be constructive. Look, we understood, as everybody does, we understand we have to have transportation. We have to have fuel. We have to flow fresh water and wastewater. Mm-hmm. We have to flow electricity. We have to do these things as a people to continue to live in a population that's growing. We're going to have to do these things. Yep. But let's not do them in such a way that we look up 10, 20 years from now and think, that was stupid. We should have spent a little more time calculating strategy instead of calculating dollars.
Right.
And this could have been done better.
Absolutely.
The second thing we did was the Onion Creek Coalition. So the city of Dripping Springs, in all their infinite wisdom, applied for a 995,000 gallon per day wastewater discharge into Onion Creek.
Yep.
Which is one of the last ephemeral creeks in Central Texas. meaning it was unimpaired. It had no discharge in it. And that creek during the summer mostly runs underground, and it contributes a ton of water to the aquifer. So if you put this wastewater into the San Marcos River or the Guadalupe River or the Colorado River, those rivers will digest and process that water because they have a lot of flow and they have clay bottom and they're dark water and shaded, and you don't get a nutrient bloom. You put that water into Onion Creek or to the Blanco River or to the San Gabriel or to, you name another creek like that, parts of the Llano, it will not process it. And the water temperature is much higher and the shade is much lower. And so we were able to go show, hey, this is going to impair, like ruin 11 miles of Onion Creek through historic driftwood.
Yep.
So here we go again, organizing the troops of landowners to fight that other kind of a basically a condemnation, a government allowed condemnation case.
Right.
And I think we ended up with some good outcomes. There was a user for that water that needed it to water a golf course. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, in the state of Texas, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but in the state of Texas, the only time you lose ownership of the water is when you put it in a public waterway. Now, I think you can put it in up here and take it out there, and you can use the waterway as effectively a pipeline for wastewater. Mm-hmm. But there's environmental hazards there that you have to account for.
Right.
So we're able to get a good outcome there. All that to say, 2 eminent domain cases or condemnation cases are not the same. Pipelines to transmission lines to roads to public utilities.
All very different. How the routes are selected are very different as well, right? So I think
that's why I want you to come in.
Yeah, and what you've described are these really great instances where landowners banding together can really affect change on a project.
Yeah.
The difficulty in that is if you get an initial offer letter, you're already too late. You're already too late to affect that kind of routing decision or about where the project is going to go. And so it's really
an offer letter, not not
correct.
The letter that I received, which was given notice that you're in one of the proposed routes.
Right.
But
so each of the different projects have different routing, go through different routing. So for a transmission line in the state of Texas, they have to go through the Public Utility Commission. And the Public Utility Commission asks all of the utilities, they file an application to amend their certificate of convenience and necessity. And part of that is if there's a potential that a transmission line, that they might want to put a transmission line across your property, they have to send you a notice. They have to send you a notice about a open house that they conduct in that community. And they have to send you notice that they filed the app, that, Encore or AEP has filed the application and that you could be crossed by a transmission line. Mm. As a landowner, you have rights to intervene in the whole process. There's a contested case, which means it goes to like a mini trial in front of an administrative law judge. You can present all your information about what would happen to your land if this transmission line is selected. You can band together with your neighbors and talk about why this particular segment of the transmission line is not, not a good idea or doesn't fit the criteria they're supposed to look at. And ultimately, through the whole process, the Public Utility Commission will order a specific route. You'll get if you were on that route, you will get another letter saying, hey, we ordered this route, and that, and you will be contacted by the utility to start surveying, get an initial offer letter, start those things that are typically condemnation.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a road, the routing of a road is a little bit different because it depends on which entity is the road. But so TxDOT, right? They have open houses where they try to get community feedback, where they try to
Encore had an open house here for this transmission line.
Oh, yeah.
What a wreck.
I can only imagine.
500 to 600 people there and, 2 people that work for Encore that look like interns.
Yeah.
That could answer no questions.
Yes. And so it's if you're talking about a transmission line, you do have that impact. You can get involved. You go to the open houses. There's comments and questionnaires that you can fill out. You can involve yourself in the process of the routing process. When it comes to a road, it's about getting together stakeholders, talking to your government officials, trying to get them to realize that, hey, maybe just like on 150, maybe this route is better because those people want it, or maybe this is better for environmental reason, or maybe you haven't thought about that there's a development going over here. Why don't you put it near that?
It's crazy that they don't know those things always.
Correct. And a lot of that onus is on the landowner to be informed and listening and talking to your neighbor about when are these infrastructure projects coming. For a pipeline, gas, water, wastewater, there is no routing process for you to be involved in. If the pipeline comes in and says, we want to go straight through the middle of your ranch, they get to do that. As long as they've met the criteria that it's for a public purpose, and that they're going to pay you their fair market value of what they're taking, which is a lot of what we argue about on the condemnation side, they can do that. And so that is, depending on what kind of infrastructure, you don't have as much to say as where it goes, depending on what kind it is.
Yeah. So before we get into all that, tell me a little bit about Braun and Gresham, the law firm, what y'all specialize in. There's a reason I called you guys. There's a lot of attorneys that work on this stuff, but I wanted to call somebody that I could have a comfortable, casual conversation with.
Yep.
That was trustworthy. and that's why I called you guys. So tell us a little bit about Braun and Gresham, and then we're going to go specifically into breaking down those eminent domain differences.
So Braun and Gresham, we're a law firm out of Dripping Springs, Texas, and we represent rural landowners across the state. And whatever that means is if you've got a problem, a legal problem, we can probably help you with it. And so we have two sides of our office. We have a transactional side where we have attorneys who deal with, real estate deals, estate planning, putting your ranch in an LLC, conservation easements, those kinds of issues with land. And then our other side, we have a litigation side where if you've got to unfortunately sue your neighbor, or if you're being condemned, that we're there to help with those kinds of issues as well. And so while we have certainly have quite a few clients throughout the Texas Hill Country, because that's where our home is, we represent ranchers and landowners across the state and all the different kinds of issues that they might have. Take a very problem-solving, practical approach to being your lawyer, right? Sometimes the answer isn't just suing your neighbor. It might just be having a conversation with it. Or, we do a lot of like implied easement cases, right? Well, I've been using this road for 50 years and now someone new purchased that property and they blocked my access. How do we deal with that? And so that's really what we do. We've grown quite a bit over the years. Just because there's been quite a demand for it, particularly because of the fragmentation you spoke about earlier, but also the changing of ownership, people who want to go out and buy their own piece of Texas, right? And what does that mean? And what are the kind of legal complications that come with that? Because certainly you're going to run into them. Yeah. It's not perfect, but to being there for the landowner when they need it. And so trying to give them all of the kinds of advice that they would need for those things.
How many attorneys now at Braun Gresham?
We are up to 15, and we even have an office out in Alpine too, as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been, those West Texas cases are really fun. But we've really enjoyed that growth because we've just seen such a demand for that kind of advice and counseling for landowners.
Awesome. Well, thanks for driving up. One last plug is what I appreciate when we hand a client off to an attorney or a surveyor or a lender or any other type of fiduciary that we hand clients to. Number one thing is being confident in communication. I mean, competency kind of goes without saying. There's competency or else I'm not going to refer the business.
Right.
But the thing that makes us look the best when we refer somebody is communication. And you guys communicate really well, and you come from a teacher's mentality. A lot of attorneys, lawyers will tell you how it is and tell you what they're going to do. And the truth is most people don't feel like they can discuss. They have an opinion
Right,
there.
right.
Oh, he's the attorney. That's what he said.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they have an opinion, and you guys very very consultative. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just, you could go get a lawyer from downtown Dallas or downtown Austin, Houston, whatever, but they're not going to understand the realities and the practical approach to the legal problems they have, because they don't understand ranches and they don't understand landowners, but we are those people. So
yeah, with downtown Dallas or downtown Austin or Houston, but also your general practitioner in rural America is not always the best either, I've found.
Yeah.
Can they make you a will? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Can they file a deed? Absolutely. Do we run into a lot of cases where it would have saved a family a lot of heartache and arguments and fights had they been done differently? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them. And a CPA is the same thing. I mean, a CPA gets paid to file your taxes, right? And so, but there's a lot of different ways to file a tax return,
right,
where you don't get where you can defend it in an audit, right? So,
absolutely.
Small business owners, there's I don't know how many ways you could possibly file a tax return that could be defended in an audit. And what I tell my CPA is, I expect you to be a teacher, and of all the ways you could file this return, I want to pay the least in taxes,
right,
and still be defendable. And I've been audited, and when I was audited, it was a freaking painful process. And the IRS owed us $82 at the end of it.
Nice.
And I said, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I want right there. I don't want to get a $50,000 return, because then they're using my money and they don't use it as responsibly as I do. And I don't want to underpay and have to come up with more.
Yeah.
I want to maximize the tax code. And so the same with an attorney. Absolutely. There's a lot of ways to set up an estate or a family limited partnership, or do a transfer of ownership. There's a lot of ways to do certain things. I want to be in the most I want our clients to have the most favorable outcome,
right,
with what they're doing. So,
absolutely.
Okay, what gives a utility company Encore? Let's transmission lines are really hot right now.
Yes.
So let's stick with transmission lines. If we spend the rest of our time there, that's fine.
Okay.
What gives Encore the power of eminent domain to come put their big transmission line across the front of my ranch?
Yep. So they derive their eminent domain authority through the Public Utility Commission. Okay. And so
which is appointed by the legislature?
Appointed by the governor.
By the governor. Okay.
Right now it's 5 public utility commissioners. They're appointed by the governor. If the legislature's in session, then they have to be approved by the Senate. But these are appointees that many times have some background, maybe some political pull, but they influence. But they sit in Austin, and they regulate the electric, water, and those utilities. So what happens is, on Encore, for example, they have what's called a certificate of convenience and necessity. And really what that is kind of like a legal monopoly. The state of Texas have given them the power to build these transmission lines, or to provide power to Texans. And they said, we're going to give you this power to do that. We're going to give you this kind of monopoly. But in order to do that, you have to go through some regulatory steps. And so part of that is when they amend their certificate of convenience and necessity, that is the routing process. And so when they say, okay, we want to build these transmission lines, and when they want to build those transmission lines, they have to show 2 things in their application. They have to show need, that these transmission lines are needed. It's not just because it's convenient. It's not just because we want to.
There's a necessity. It's
that there is there's transmission.
There's a public need.
There's a public need. There's congestion in the grid. And so need, and then the other part is that the route that they pick satisfies these statutory and rule criteria. Yeah. So, and that's usually what we argue a lot about in our routing cases.
And cost of construction is a factor.
It is.
Because?
Yes. So those costs, it's costs, prudent avoidance, which is keeping the transmission line away from habitable structures, houses, schools, things like that. Paralleling existing infrastructure or paralleling boundary lines, environmental integrity. They don't want to impact parks and recreational area, engineering constraints. There's quite a few in there. But the big ones are always cost and impacts to habitable structures. And cost is really important because these transmission lines that are being built, while Oncor and these utilities will pay up front to build these transmission lines, ultimately
and profit from them later.
But ultimately what happens is the cost to build these transmission lines is recovered on the ratepayers of Texas. And so Oncor gets to recover all of the money that they put into routing and building these transmission lines on pennies of a kilowatt hour fraction on your utility bill. And it's everyone's utility bill. It's not just the people in the area that's impacted by the transmission line. It's every ratepayer in the state of Texas. So they do really try to keep those costs down because they don't want to pay it on rate. They don't want to put that on ratepayers.
When did the Public Utility Commission approve these new projects? Was it after Snowmageddon? Or is this a new advent of data centers, or what's driving? Because there's like 5 of these projects going around in the state.
Correct. So this happened in 2023.
Okay.
The state legislature passed a bill that created the Permian Basin Reliability Plan. And in that plan, the legislature instructed the Public Utility Commission and ERCOT to study the very large need for power in the Permian Basin. And so they said, go out there, study it, and come up with a solution, come up with a plan to make sure we're getting power out to the Permian Basin. Because really what's happening is there's a huge need for power out in those areas of West Texas.
For what? There's not very many people out there.
Not very many people. It is a combination of things. It is a need for our oil and gas operations are now on the grid. They didn't used to be. So they need the power from the grid for the oil and gas operations and the drilling that they're doing out there in extraction. They need it for the, on the other side, the crypto mining, the data center. There's that aspect there as well. And then in general, population growth and transmission congestion. Mm-hmm. I think what's really interesting is because we have a competitive market for power in Texas, when you get what they call transmission congestion, when the power that's out on the grid can't get to where it's needed, that starts to cost consumers. Mm-hmm. So, I think, right around the time that they were doing this Permian Basin Reliability Plan, there was a lot of congestion that was it cost the ratepayers of Texas billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. And so they really want to build a transmission so that they can get the power to where it's needed. Mm-hmm. However, the main need is out there in the Permian Basin. And so what happened was after that bill was passed, ERCOT went in and started studying it. They had some engineers look at it, look at the projections of that need, how much power was needed to be out there. And then after they've studied that, they went back to the Public Utility Commission and said, okay, hey, this is what we think is the amount of power that's needed out there based on all these projections and engineering and projects and the stakeholders, right? Oncor, AEP, all these big utility companies, and also the oil and gas companies were part of that stakeholder discussions. So, but they study it, come up with the plan, and then the Public Utility Commission looks at it and says, okay, they chose between 3 different power line options. 345 kilovolt transmission lines, which are the ones that we have in Texas now. The biggest ones we have in Texas are 345s. So when you're looking and you think, oh, those are massive, that's a 345. A 500 kilovolt transmission line, which is a little bit bigger. We have a few of those over in East Texas that are just being built. And then a 765 kilovolt line. and they looked at those 3 options of which one that they wanted. And they ultimately selected the 765 one. A little more expensive for the build out. However, it's going to require less land. And so they chose that one. The Public Utility Commission chose that one. And there are 3 import paths that come
less
from it.
Land because they need fewer of them.
Correct. So
more land underneath them, but fewer alignments.
Less land overall. So the power that runs through a 765 kilovolt transmission line is the equivalent of 3 double circuit 345 transmission lines. And so total overall, less land encumbered by transmission lines. However, I think what you'll see is that the impact, if you do get that 765 kilovolt transmission line, is going to be much greater than that of a 345. So the legislature says, okay, or not, sorry, the commission says, okay, we want to do the 765s, transmission service providers, Encore, AEP, LCRA, CPS. Okay, you've been a part of this. You're the ones who are going to build this. These are the import paths that we want. Now go out there and do your thing. File your application, your amendments, file your applications to amend your CCNs and get started on this routing process. And that's what happened after they studied it and they looked at those import paths and the sections of the import paths that they were responsible for. They put their engineerings on it. They got their routing consultants and people on it. Then they started the process of sending out those letters for the open houses to notify landowners that you might be impacted by these transmission lines. There's a lot to unpack in there.
Oh my gosh. There's so much. I mean, landowners, because we hear from them, like their emotions are crazy when they get one of those.
Absolutely.
Everything from furious, mad to just heartbroken, sad.
Right.
And very few of them say, well, you know what? That's the best news I've gotten.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? There's a lot to unpack there.
Yep.
When you say the impact's greater, what do you mean there?
Wider right of way.
Yeah.
Taller structures, bigger structures. The transmission line, these towers are about the equivalent of a 7-story building. So they're very tall. They're in the air. More power running through them, thicker conductors so that the wires themselves are larger visual presence. And I think there's just the uncertainty of these have never been built in Texas. They have been built in other parts of the United States. It's not something that is unheard of, but we don't have a good idea of what this means for landowners. I've been in every single one of these applications in the process through the Public Utility Commission. And I think that what's been very difficult to grapple with is that uncertainty and that unknown. And that uncertainty and unknown, Encore and AEP and LCRA, they don't know either because a lot of them they've never designed it. AEP has done it in other parts, but in Texas, you never designed it, never had to go through this. And we don't know what those impacts will be. And we don't know what it's going to...
Health concerns, that's the biggest, outside of the real estate take, because you could probably answer this question. On my piece of property where we live, this is our home place that this is proposed to come across. And that particular property is 40 acres. And right at the front, you pull into our really pretty gates and you come over the dam of the lake and the line would come across the front. It would extend probably over the gates and to the edge of the lake, come across the front there. I'm a real estate guy. I sell properties not that nice every day, but I sell nice properties every day. And my estimate would be that there would be $1 million in diminished value to that piece of property, conservatively, in true marketable value. That has nothing to do with Is it going to make me and my kids sick? Or is my electric gate even going to work underneath the thing? Or will my cows and horses get under it? Or is it going to shock my horses? Their horseshoes going to shock them? None of that. This is just marketable value. I would say a diminished value of $1 million.
Right.
And that piece of property is probably at the front, call it 700 feet wide. So the right of way would be 200 feet by 700 feet. What are they likely to want to pay there?
So what's really interesting on a transmission line can be different than a pipeline is that, right, it is a huge visual presence.
Yeah.
And so what we call the damages to the remainder.
Well, you could see it for 10 miles from my house or more because the way the topography lays out.
Yeah. And so if you're being crossed by the transmission line and then it's not just what they pay for the easement itself, it is you are also entitled in condemnation to the damage to your remaining property and the value of that. And so because of the large visual presence of them, because of the unknowns or perceived health, effects, because that is out there. We don't have to argue about the science of it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. But people do believe that there are health effects. So that's going to be affected in the market as well. Yeah. And so their
perception becomes reality in that deal.
Exactly.
And there's probably some reality to it. I'm not a doctor either, but I would venture to say, take the highest paid transmission line executive in the world and offer him an opportunity to live underneath one of them or far away. Which one would you choose?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I'm not living near them or under them either. Yeah. So
go ahead.
But so that is a big part of what you are going to be fighting these companies about, which is the damage to your property value, the remainder of your property value. Yeah. And when you're talking about a taking right in front of your gate, right in front of this beautiful scenery, then that is going to be a lot of money that I think that they don't really understand yet. And quite frankly, we don't have paired sales look at.
There's no comparables or precedents.
There's not. And so it's going to take some creative appraising, right? It's going to take someone really pushing the boundaries or pushing the utility companies to properly compensate them for that. And I don't think they realize that yet.
How are those values calculated? Do they take 700 by 200 and apply that to acres and give you the appraised price per acre value?
Yeah.
How are they calculated?
Sure. So typically what they do for the easement itself, it is the price per acre of what they're taking, and they usually multiply it times 0.9 or 0.95. You still own the land, right? You still have it fee simple, but you can't do a lot with it, right? You can cross it, right? Yeah. But you can graze in it, but you can't build a structure in that right of way, right? So they take almost all of your rights to that land. So it's
a nice buzzing sound when you go experience that.
Exactly. Acreage. So they do that 0.9 or 0.95 typically and multiply that out. So that's what you're going to get for the easement itself. For the damages to the remainder, that is actually that's where these cases get further apart. If you've got a good utility appraiser, they acknowledge that there is damage to the remainder of your property by putting a transmission line on it. How much that is wildly different. Yeah. You're lucky on a utility appraisal if they'll say, oh, yeah, like 10%. It's 10% damage to your remainder. Of course, it depends a lot of the taking, right? Is it straight through the middle of your property? Is it a bisect? Is it a corner clip? Is it along the gate? Things like that. So that's usually where there's a big fight. There are I've seen cases and had appraisers where, that difference is, the utility company might say, or their appraiser might say, it's only 10%. We're looking at 35% or more. And I think we're going to see those higher numbers, particularly because of the size of these, the perception of them in the marketplace. And so that is that damage to the remainder. And that's where that big wide difference really comes in terms of compensation. The last one is a cost to cure item. So, right, if they take out your fence, they take out your gate, those kinds of things, they do have to pay to replace them. And so when you are talking about really nice ranches, they take out those really fancy gates, they do have to pay to pay you to replace them as well. So those are really the 3 buckets of where you're getting your compensation in a condemnation case.
Yeah. The math still ain't mathing.
No, I don't think the math is really going to math.
I'm doing the math in my head and I'm like, okay, calculate the acres, 10% diminished value. Man, you might stretch it to 200,000. Maybe they're not going to stretch it there.
Yeah.
So the real impact's $1 million, lucky to get 200,000.
Right. And so that's where, honestly, that's where the lawyers come in, is that really working those cases and pushing the utilities to get more. And ultimately, if you need to, go to a jury trial on it and, ask a jury of your peers, where is the mathing, and what does that damage really mean to your property?
Yeah. Yeah. What are they required to do to ensure safety? Like, what do they do they tell us they're safe? Like, so I'm on the board for White Horse Christian Academy, private school here in Stephenville. And we have, I'm trying to think how many students we have, 180 students on campus. Brand new $3 million school building, beautiful campus, a lot of little kids. The line will, if it goes where they're saying now, their preferred route, it would clip the side of the yard.
Okay.
But there's also one that runs over the parking lot at Dublin High School. So we've had several families that say, well, if that happens, our kids aren't going to school there. That's obviously a problem for us with a tuition-based school business.
Yes.
But, that's because their concerns are safety. They don't care if they drop their kids off and have to look at the thing. It's safety.
Yeah.
So what are they required to do by law to research safety? Or is there any requirements there?
They do have nationwide safety NERC standards and other safety standards. Like, I know a big one is also wildfire risk. So there if the transmission line goes down or is snapped or something like that, they have pretty automatic de-energizing technology so that it's not a live wire flying around. In terms of
think of a GFI plug.
Right.
Flips
exactly.
off. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
they have standards that they have to meet. For sure. I cannot tell you all those safety standards because I'm not an engineer, but they do have those.
Okay.
But I would say that what we've been seeing in these proceedings and what we've heard from the engineers in this proceedings is that the level of electromagnetic fields that will be coming off of these transmission lines, once you get out of, if you're at the edge of the 200 feet, if you're at the edge of the easement, that electromagnetic field is going to be at the level of like a microwave or your cell phone, household appliances. And so I would say in terms of if you're worried about the health and safety of your kids, I would just, as long as you stay out of that right of way and you're not in that right of way all of the time, they should be fine. But again, that's not... I don't know if that's really much help. It's still, there's just a lot of unknown and uncertainty and honestly, just not a lot of trust in what Encore has to say, which I don't blame them.
No way.
I don't blame anyone for that.
Trust me.
Yeah. Trust me is fine. Yes.
Trust me, you'll be fine. Yeah. And if you're not, we're gone. Gosh, I've got so many questions. The legislature 3 weeks ago, voted to pause some of this and look deeper into some of it, right? I'm told.
There were many letters that the legislatures have sent to the Public Utility Commission, who've sent to Governor Abbott and have raised the flag about their concerns about this project, and that the 765 kilovolt transmission lines were not what they thought was going to happen that this was not what they planned when they passed the Permian Basin Reliability Plan back in 2023.
I just asked, did the Texas legislature recently order Oncor and the transmission line companies to pause these new large projects? And here's what I found. My AI bot here. Yes, but there's an important distinction. Texas legislature did not pass a law. I knew that. Did not pass a law ordering Oncor or other transmission companies to stop their projects. Instead, a large bipartisan group of Texas legislators formally asked the Public Utility Commission of Texas to pause several of the proposed 765 kV transmission line projects while broader policy questions are reviewed. This is what you're saying. Specifically, 43 Texas legislators, led by Representative Brad Buckley, who actually represents much of my area here, filed an amicus brief supporting a pause. They argue that the projects have grown far beyond the legislature's originally envisioned after Winter Storm Uri, and want utilities to better justify four things. One, the actual need for the lines. I think they'll get that justification. I mean, the fact that I'm using AI here and probably Taylor's used it over there and we probably use it today, that in itself probably justifies it. In a growing state, they'll get their justification.
Yeah.
Secondly, the projected electric demand. Third, the cost to repairs. And fourth, the impact on private properties. The request also cites concerns that many of these lines are being driven by AI data centers in future load growth rather than immediate reliability needs. Nothing's been paused. Why this matters to Erath County knows where we're at. This is directly relevant to the Dinosaur Longshore transmission line project affecting Erath, Somerville, Hood, and surrounding counties. Many rural landowners, county officials, and organizations such as American Stewards of Liberty have argued that eminent domain is being exercised too aggressively. I would probably agree. Demand forecasts may be overstated. Landowners were not adequately notified after route changes, and transmission expansion should be required before thousands of additional miles of high voltage lines are approved.
Yes, so that was the letter. So American Stewards for Liberty has been a part of all of these proceedings.
Yeah.
And they've made continually put forward the argument and briefed and really pushed the Public Utility Commission to reevaluate the need. And that was the need that was established with the Permian Basin Reliability Plan really there.
Yeah.
And also to look at more dispatchable energy generation in the Permian Basin, not shipping or flowing it across half of the state for that. And so I think that there's a really big the data centers are absolutely impacting our electric grid. And it is impacting this project. It is not the only thing about these projects, but it is certainly impacting it. And you can see it that I don't think that our government and the leaders were prepared for that impact. And while we, of course, are pro-business in the state of Texas and really want to drive those economies, making the right decision for transmission lines, making the right decision for these data centers it's all coming to a point with these projects. And so they're going to have to do something about it for sure.
You a country music fan?
Yes, I am.
You know Aaron Tippin?
I do, yes.
Just going to show our age. We grew up in the 80s. So Aaron Tippin has this song called "You've Got to Stand for Something or You'll Fall for Anything."
Yes,
and
yes.
I love the song. I love what it says more than the actual, it's like a jam that going down the road.
Yeah.
But really and truly, if we totally change rural America with transmission lines and data centers and all the different things, then we change the heart and the culture of who we are as a state. Yep. All for future luxuries.
Right.
That's where I struggle.
Yeah.
You think that trend? Yeah, I mean that's. I
mean,
know
me too.
You do. That's why I have you here. That's why I have you here. What should landowners in Texas expect moving forward? I don't really know where to go here. I've got so many questions in a little bit of time. But what should they expect moving forward? Does everybody need a lawyer on retainer because we're all going to get notice of stuff? Like, what should we expect?
What should you expect? I do think that there is going to be more increased infrastructure build out across rural Texas.
Yeah.
And while these 765 lines are the biggest, baddest of it all that we've seen thus far, it's not going to stop. Mm-hmm. And so, you don't have to hire us now, but you should have people that you trust to be able to answer those questions about when you get that request to survey, when you get those open meetings, things. I guess my best practical advice is open your mail, please.
Yeah.
Open your mail. Open your snail mail and take those notices seriously.
Yeah, that's the thing with the stamp on it in your inbox.
Right. Don't just that certified letter, that return receipt requested. Please open your mail and take those notices seriously. And talk to your neighbors because kind of like we talked about at the beginning, if you want to start influencing these projects, if you want to be on the front of it, you've got to really be talking. In one of these projects, we had some clients that didn't ignore their mail, got to us early, hired us right as the open houses were starting. And so they were able to get involved. We were able to not get them out of the crosshairs. They're still being crossed by the transmission line, but we were able to shift the alignment of the line prior to the application being filed, just by bringing up certain things about the property and that something that could help them out. They still might get the transmission line, but hopefully it won't be, if they do, we're still trying to stop that, it won't be as bad. So that conversation then also they got very involved, and then they started talking to their neighbors, and they pulled up, they went crazy. And they got a whole group of landowners together, and it was a bunch of people who really just didn't take those letters seriously.
Yeah.
And they thought, oh, well, I can fight it later. I can fight it on the condemnation. On a transmission line, you're too late.
It's too late.
You're not going to fight it on the condemnation. That route has already been selected and it's not going anywhere. And the utility company is going to say, hey, I've got a public utility commission order saying it goes here, and we can't go anywhere else. So, really open your mail and talk to your neighbors. That's the practical advice I got.
Turns out life hasn't changed that much over the
it's true.
history of time.
So true.
Communication still wins.
Yes.
You think this changes like due diligence and feasibility somebody should take when they're purchasing a ranch?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times, and it's not even on a ranch, but I can't tell you how many times I've been on the condemnation side where someone has called me and said, I just bought this property 3 months ago. No one told me that this company was coming and build a transmission line. And honestly, the seller should have disclosed that. It should have been in that seller's disclosure, but it doesn't. And, somewhat to the seller's point, you don't necessarily know, is it actually going to cross you until the commission orders it. So
it's got a bunch of properties here locked down because there's 5 proposed routes, and I'm not buying one that's in one of them and hoping. And look, if it's got a transmission line through it, doesn't mean I wouldn't buy the piece of property. It just would affect what I might pay for it.
Absolutely.
And so that's a big deal.
Right.
That's a big deal. It's got a lot of places locked down.
Yep.
So some sellers that are willing to reduce price and say, well, I know we're on the existing line. Our risk is your reward. We're going to discount a little bit. If it doesn't come through you, congratulations. If it does, you get the proceeds.
Yep.
Then those places are still trading. And there's a lot of people they'll gamble. Well, there's 5 alignments. There's a 20% chance I get it. 80% I don't.
Yeah.
Depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think feasibility, due diligence involving First, having a really good broker that's familiar with the area. And I tell our agents all the time, local knowledge is your number one thing in your fiduciary. You know, there's a lot of agents in our space, and our guys drive a lot of miles. We do too. But there's a lot of agents in our space that get an opportunity to list a deal that's outside of their area of competency, and it looks like income. And so they go do it.
Right.
Or they represent a buyer that they know here, and they're taking this buyer 3 hours away, and your license allows you to do that.
Right.
So they go do those things, but they don't know about the proposed transmission lines that the county's been talking about or the landowners have been talking about. They don't know about the proposed road alignments unless you go research that stuff. Now, we've got tools, we research them, and we involve attorneys and surveyors and all these things early for our clients. But if you're not doing your homework, gosh.
Absolutely.
Probably should be.
Correct.
Fire your agent, hire another one.
Yes.
Yeah. For sure.
You know this, right? It just makes a difference when you have professionals who are familiar with rural land.
Yeah.
It just makes a huge difference.
100%. All right. I get a letter in the mail. What'd I do? I get a letter in the mail. We're looking at you for a transmission line project. What's the best course of action there? And I've only got a certain amount of money to spend. I'm happy to hire an attorney, but I can't pay him everything I've ever earned.
Right.
Yeah. What do I do?
I think the best thing, if you get that notification for an open meeting, the open house that they have in the communities, show up to that open house and definitely fill out the questionnaire.
Yeah.
Fill out those questionnaires. Tell them absolutely everything about your property and why it shouldn't go there and your opinion about it. Because no one knows your property better than you. And they're doing desktop analysis from their computers with a very, very small field reconnaissance. Yeah. And they can't go on private property. Yeah. So give them all the detail that they need. Then after that, definitely intervene in the routing process. And you certainly can hire attorneys.
Intervention, there's a definition of that. You have to fill out another form to be an intervener.
Yes. So after you get that open house letter, you'll get the other letter that says, we're filing this application. You're impacted. Here's some information about it. Once you get that letter, you do have a deadline to intervene in the proceedings. And so there's a lot of resources on the Public Utility Commission website, but you can intervene, you can be a party to those proceedings. Now, a lot of people hire lawyers. That's what I do.
Yeah. And at what point should we call you or Patrick?
When you get that letter.
Okay.
Even better, call us when you get that open house letter. But certainly at that time when you get that the application's being filed and you could be potentially impacted.
Yeah.
And so that intervening, you can do it pro se because of these projects have been massive. And there's probably maybe 30 transmission line lawyers that represent landowners in the state of Texas. Yep. It's not a big bar. We know each other. We love each other, but it's not a big bar. And so a lot of these landowners have had to navigate this incredibly complicated, fast legal process by themselves because the legislature in their infinite wisdom also shortened the timeline to do this. It used to be you got a year to do it. Now it's 180 days.
Yeah.
And it's been breakneck. And so, but you can do it yourself. You should intervene and, you should talk to your neighbors about it and see if you can come up with a group that want to participate. And that's also a really great way to pull resources, right? Attorneys will represent groups of landowners who are similarly impacted. So if they're on the same segment or link of that transmission line, they can represent multiple people. And so that's also another great way to kind of stretch your limited dollars in terms of legal representation.
What's it cost to intervene and fight it? If I've got, 50 acres, 100 acres, I think I'll just use our average client. Our average client across the state of Texas is 125 acres. What a lot of them think, well, I can never afford to fight this. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I don't know. Mm-hmm. You have a ballpark on what somebody's looking at to fight it? I know I'm pressuring you here.
No, I'm going to give you the great lawyer answer of it depends. So it really depends on the kind of project. On these 765s, they have been very contested hearings. They've been 5-6 day hearings. If you're paying a lawyer every single day for that long, these are really expensive.
Sure.
So you're looking at $50,000 to $100,000. However, on a smaller transmission line, or maybe there's a project that doesn't have the size of, in the Bell County East to Big Hill case, there were over 800 interveners.
Yeah.
Like that's an insane number. Most of these are not that big. So if it's something smaller, it could be something that, or if it's a line that there's not a lot of pushback or you're the only intervener, I mean, it's not that expensive at all. It's you're looking more like 10 grand or something like that.
That's what I was getting at. I think the average person is probably going to go to the open house.
Right.
And listen because they're passionate, and look, at the end of the day, it's not your property, it's theirs.
Right.
And so they're going to be passionate about going, but they're going to want some advice and counsel, especially when it comes to negotiation. Mm-hmm. Right. Because like, I feel like I'm pretty competent to go to open house, fill out the form, tell them about my place, even argue with them a little bit. Mm-hmm. But when it comes down to if we got the formal letter and now we're going in and negotiating that condemnation and the value of what they're going to take, I would hand it over.
Yeah. So after they've ordered the route, for sure.
Yeah, I'm handing it over at that point.
Yeah.
And most places are, even though it's the most important, most beautiful place in the world to the owner, mm-hmm. most places are fairly common in that they're one of many. It's a great place, but they're one of many. There's a few places that are one of one's places. Mm-hmm. And I think the one of one's places, or if you have a very significant archaeological feature or discharge feature or endangered species feature or something like this, you're going to have a lot more success at getting a line moved than you are, I just don't want it.
Right. So
because I think I could give you $1 million. And if they wanted to come across my 40 acres just because I don't want it, they're coming.
Yeah.
So, but if I had, like I said, if I had dinosaur bones and bald eagles and all these other things, we could probably get the thing moved.
Yeah. And that's that's the routing process. And so those are the things that we put into evidence to say, hey, you're going to, in the Bell County East of Big Hill, like we have Native American burial grounds, it's like, don't put a transmission line over that.
Yeah.
On the condemnation side, when you're trying to fight over the compensation and what that means, the vast majority of lawyers do that on a contingency fee basis.
Yeah.
So if you do get the line and you're trying to fight about that, that's typically what the lawyers are doing. And so that is a way that you don't have to have a lot of money up front to actually get
attainable by the average landowner.
Yeah.
The average landowner can have representation.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. The average landowner can have good legal representation.
Right.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by the Mock Ranches Real Estate Group. At Mock Ranches, we specialize in representing buyers and sellers of farms, ranches, and recreational land across the state of Texas. Our team sold over $1.25 billion of Texas land, and we focus on helping landowners make smart decisions about their most valuable assets. If you're thinking about buying or selling, or simply want to understand the land markets better, get a hold of us at mockranches.com. Mock Ranches, Texas land represented right.
Don't sign the first offer letter.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think I was trying to think of my best legal advice of that and frequently asked questions. Don't sign that first letter, that initial offer letter you get from them. This is where a lawyer or a trusted counselor can come in and give you some, even some real estate agents who know what they're talking about can come in and give you an idea of like, this is a bad easement or this is a bad contract. You should really look into this further. So don't sign that initial offer letter. I will tell you, as much as you like, these condemning authorities do have the right to survey your property before they give you that initial offer. So you can tell them no for a long time, But ultimately, if they want on your property to survey, they will go to the courthouse and get a temporary restraining order to get on your property.
Don't shoot at them.
Don't shoot anyone or threaten to shoot anyone. They will come back with a court order. So you don't have to make it easy for them, but you do have to let them on your property eventually. So that's always a fun one.
Yeah.
But
one of those jobs you're surprised people sign up for.
Yeah.
What's the best source of information? If I'm a landowner and I want to stay informed, there's all sorts of passionate news and propaganda and content that I could look at. What's the best source of information?
News.
It's probably not the Facebook rant and rave group.
Yeah, it's not the Facebook rant and rave group. I mean, I would look at your local newspapers. If you're talking about kind of statewide, what's going on, I always like to look at the Texas Tribune in terms of the political side of things. I think it's not necessarily news sources that you should be looking at. It's really like your county commissioners' minutes and agendas and your those kinds of things. And your local papers where they have those public notices that no one ever looks at.
Yeah.
There's a wealth of information in those. So that's actually where I would put more of my effort in terms of figuring out what's going on.
Our county judge here and our commissioners in Erath County are doing a very good job at keeping people informed, actively fighting it. I know there's tons of it's seasons of life been pretty involved in the legislature, not as a registered lobbyist, but I've worked on a lot of stuff up there.
Yeah.
Some with David and Kasey and some with other groups.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a lot of political posturing goes along. There's a lot of this is just process. It's, hey, we're going to send in a letter to pause these things. A lot of that's just part of the process. And I think people should avoid getting their hopes up that it gets stopped. A lot of it's just the legislature saying, look, we had them go back and look again. And I've actually worked on bills and worked on things in the legislature where I know the guy sitting across from me is actively working against me.
Yes.
As he's smiling. I know he's actively working against me. And when we succeed, he'll come be right in the middle of the photo and say, go landowners.
Right.
And it's just the truth of it. So sorting through all that stuff is foggy at best for most people.
Right.
And then you interject all the emotions into it, and you have, like my neighbors over here, they don't live here. It was their great grandmother's property, and she texts me in tears every other day about, can you believe they're doing this? And I'm like, I hate it as bad as you do. But an Instagram post that says a transmission line in North Carolina killed 37 cats yesterday maybe is not the best source of information to send to your county commissioner. So I go down there and have a meeting with Judge Huckabee, or I have a meeting with the commissioners and stay informed through Patrick. You all have a very, very good newsletter. What's it called?
We do. We have Your Texas Land is our newsletter. And so what we try to be is a resource
it's great
for landowners.
It is great.
Our articles, other articles, stuff that's going on, trends we see.
Yeah.
We certainly have been posting about these 765 lines and trying to have landowners really understand.
They can subscribe
the
to that, I'm sure, online at braungresham.com.
Yeah, it's braungresham.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter. We have other blogs and informative things. We also have a YouTube channel. I've got a transmission line routing 101 webinar. We've got quite a few condemnation ones. Yeah.
Taylor, would you make a link to, make a note. Let's put a link to that in the notes. That'd be great.
Yeah. Cause like we talked about earlier, we do take an educational approach to our law practice. And it's not just about, we care deeply about Texas landowners. So it's not even if you're our client, it's that you're a Texas landowner. And we want everyone to be aware of what's out there. So definitely it's a good resource.
What's your favorite dish at Hays City Store?
Oh, that's hard. I do really like their truck stop enchiladas.
It's pretty good.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're good.
And the best Mexican martini in the state.
Ever since Trudy's closed, I would agree with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for spending the time to drive up. I've got something for you.
Invite.
Kendall told me to give this to you.
Okay, great.
It's nothing super important, but
Thank you.
There's a copy of our magazine, the Landowner Insider magazine.
Perfect.
And there's a foam ball cap, which is the one all the ladies like.
Oh.
A rain gauge, which, you may be superstitious. You're never supposed to accept a free rain gauge.
We put out Broad and Gresham rain gauges. Everyone always takes them.
Oh, yeah.
They're the most popular. So
Yeah. And I think there's a koozie in there for the hot days. So thank you so much for coming down. Folks can find and contact you how?
Absolutely. Just Broad and Gresham. Our website has all of the lawyers that work there, but myself, Patrick Resnick. Or you can always just call our office at 512-894-5426 and ask for Carly.
Well, thank you for your work for Texas landowners. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate you driving all the way up
absolutely.
to meet with us, and hopefully we can help some folks with this.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Get a transmission line letter, open your mail, and call Carly.
Open your mail. Yes.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. See ya.
Bye.
That wraps us up. I appreciate you listening to the Landowner Insider. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to follow the show, leave us a review, and share it with another Texas landowner. For more insights, listings, and resources for Texas landowners, visit mockranches.com. Till next time, I'm Kasey Mock, your host. This has been the Landowner Insider. Go get 'em.